What is up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Nick, Hawk Pro Detailing, wearing my Rupes shirt here. It's got the BigFoot on there. So it proves to you that I went to Rupes Advanced Paint Correction and Wet Sanding class with Jason Rose in Denver, Colorado. Was it worth it? Well, I've got a lot of toys here to tell you about. I am a fan of Rupes. I am not a fanboy. That's a quick disclaimer. And I want to give you a really objective look. Is it worth going to Rupes, spending the money, investing your time to get trained? That review coming up. I just go back and forth. Hey everybody, Nick from Hawk Pro Detailing. If you're digging this content, I would love to continue the conversation. There's a little hawk in the corner, kind of tiny. Click on it, subscribe, that'd be amazing. You know, there's no doubt that from the Miele to the LHR 15 BigFoot, which a lot of you guys know, to the 75E, by the way, I love this machine. It's probably my favorite Rupes machine. There's no doubt that this company makes amazing products. Or I should at least say, amazing machines. Now the question here is, should you go get trained by them? Bottom line is this, I knew that I had learned a lot on YouTube, but I wanted to elevate my craft. You see so many of the best professionals in the industry using these Rupes machines. I knew that if I wanted to learn, I wanted to learn from the best.
When you're dealing with soft paint, you're getting more corrective ability.
Now you're looking at Todd Helm. Now Todd is an interesting guy. I went to this training to learn from a legend, Jason Rose. He worked for years at McGuire's. He's an all-around nice guy. It was so amazing to stand feet away from Jason Rose. So we're gonna get to Todd in a second. Let me tell you a few things that I learned from Jason. These are just random, small little things. He was a couple feet away from me, right? And I was polishing on a car, and he was having a conversation with someone else, and then he was watching me though, and he stopped the conversation in his really quiet, humble voice, like, hold on. And he just told me a technique adjustment. Tilt your wrist ever so slightly, right? Because you want to have the permanent marker on the backing plate, and I wasn't getting the pad rotation that I wanted. And he noticed a technique adjustment for me, which was just a slight tilt of the wrist. A lot of guys, you know, you have the Kevin Brown washer mod method, but what I learned at Rupes training is often pad rotation has a lot to do with your technique, and the slightest adjustment of your wrist can get that pad spinning again. I may have learned that on YouTube, but for someone to show me that I was making that mistake was huge. Another thing, as we were cleaning up one day, he said, hey, make sure all the caps, as it sprays all over me, make sure all the caps on the compounds are closed. Now there's a science to it. I don't know if it was outgassing or what, and he wasn't just talking about Rupes compounds. What he was saying is, what happens is if these are left open for too long, it actually changes the structure or the science of these. So if I leave this open overnight, my compound or polish, it turns into a different substance. It may still do the job, I think, possibly, but it's not the same thing that you bought. And I had no idea that closing the cap at the end of the day could make such a difference. These are some of the small things that sound so minuscule that you take with you for the rest of your life, and you're like, if I didn't go there, if I didn't have this experience person to person with someone and have him casually mention something like that, I may never have known it. But I digress. Let's look at the price tag here for a little bit. I spent more than $800 to go to Rupes. And I'm going to be expensing this, by the way. I have an LLC. I'm a legitimate business. This was 2 days of training. Doesn't include gas. Doesn't include my time gone. Doesn't include lodging. So even though it's not the most expensive training in the world, at least it wasn't last summer, it certainly added up. As far as the facility goes, I mean, it was just top of the line. Jason Rose and Dylan Von Kleist, they were really proud of it. You could tell they were showing us around. I think they finished this up within the last year. You know, from the flooring to the wash bay to the entire facility, it's world class. There's a lot of empty space. I think they have big plans to expand as well. So the first thing we learned about was wet sanding and DA sanding. Jason is big on sanding with the DA, and I think we learned a lot about how important it can be with the right interface pad to put a proper grit sandpaper on because you can achieve results faster and you're not introducing heat, right? When you heat up the paint, it swells up. We don't want heat. So it was really fascinating to learn hands-on how to sand with a DA. I think a lot of us maybe use those KX, K-Dynamics, Rid Sticks, whatever. We're used to, block sanding, but getting trained from Jason about sanding with a DA was very fascinating. I think at the end of the day, I got some really good hands-on training, and I think at the end of the day, I feel more humbled, and I still feel very cautious about wanting to sand on paint. But I learned some of the principles from Jason, and I'm really grateful for that. We also learned the difference between texture removal, that's pretty hardcore, removing orange peel, and then just texture leveling. So that's a little bit more of a realistic step that you might go after. But if I learned anything in this class, and I know that I'm butchering a lot of the amazing lessons taught, it's that you really want to be careful wet sanding on OEM paint. If it's a regular paint job that you got from a car at the lot, be very cautious about wet sanding. When you're talking about a Riddler car with a bunch of layers of clear, that's when the gurus like Jason Kilmer go at it, wet sand it, polish it to perfection. But a lot of the clear these days is very thin, and so they really encourage us to use a paint gauge, a paint thickness gauge, to measure the paint before we do anything to it, and to be realistic with our customers and have expectations. But in this class, we didn't really learn about business tips. We learned, if you're going to do this stuff, here's how to do it. And so we did learn quite a bit about wet sanding. I don't really plan on using it in my business, but again, I think that's still from that healthy fear of really not wanting to sand. I mean, I talked to Jason Kilmer, and I told him at the rag company last year, I asked him, I'm like, what still scares you? And he said, every time I put sandpaper to paint. That says it right there. And we also learned about all kinds of different techniques, from finishing to edge work, to using a rotary, which can be very helpful on edges because it moves in one direction. Which direction you want to tilt the pad when you're on an edge for more safe finishing work. Obviously the edges, the paint gets thinner. So we learned so many different nuances about polishing paint. And I went to Rupes to learn how to have better corrective ability. But what I heard from a lot of guys in the class, and when I learned from Todd Helm, and I'll get to him in a second, is just how important it is to finish. Like, it's almost like drive for show, putt for dough. Like, you can defect removal all day long, but if you can finish that black paint, that's where the money-making skills are. I think that's where the art is. So it's a little bit of both, obviously, but finishing is very nuanced, and we learned a lot of different techniques about that.
Blew the pad out, all that residue out, and made one more slow pass with even more pressure and even less speed. Wiped off, perfect.
I also got to try the Miele for the first time. I tried their rotary and realized, hey, maybe I'm not going to be a rotary guy. I wanted to get some skills there. But the Miele is cool. It's the forced rotation. It goes in one direction, so no matter what's happening, the pad will keep spinning, right? With your DA, it's meant to be very safe. So if you're in a weird position with this machine, the pad might stop spinning. I think ideally that's safer for the paint. And again, if anyone from Rupes or a skilled paint correction technician's watching me, you're probably like, oh, this guy knows nothing about what he's talking about. But I do. I just don't always explain it well. But the Miele is forced rotation. And the cool thing about that is you can teach a beginner how to use a polisher because it's less technique dependent. This will continue to spin, which can be dangerous, right? We're getting into rotary territory where it's going to keep spinning no matter what. But this will continue to spin, so depending on the situation, you can just keep this thing spinning. I kind of like it for edge work, where sometimes this will stall or bog down, whereas this will continue to work for you no matter what you are doing. I like the Miele. I think the verdict is still out there. I used this machine. We also used the Nano. We used everything. They're pneumatic, they're air compressor powered tools. I don't have enough air compressor power for those as a mobile guy. But man, I used this and fell in love with it. So it was really cool to just get a lot of hands-on experience and be like, hey, what are these all about? I also tried some of, they have a specific compound and polish system for the Miele. I like the idea of working within their system. Jason is a guru and I trust him. And then these are some of their compounds and polishes, and they talk about, we've scienced it out, right? They've scienced out the fact that these particular compounds and polishes work well with their pads and their machines. In talking to a lot of guys after leaving the class, I think we all wanted to love these compounds and polishes, and in the right hands, I'm sure they would do way better than I could. I still find myself reaching for other compounds and polishes with these two machines, and that's worked a little bit better for me. But again, I've only been alive 32 years, and I'm sure there are guys who have been doing this for 32 years who are scratching their head and thinking, why is this guy on YouTube talking about polishing paint? I'm just trying to share things that I learned. Maybe it helps guys out there. Another random thing is this is a microfiber cutting disc for my LHR 75E, and man, do I love this combo. I tried the Rupes pads because they have less of a foam backing or interface. I don't know what you call it. And those actually cut better, but what I found with the Rupes mini pads is that the Velcro was coming off. And I don't know if that's because I was hammering down too hard, but it seemed like the microfiber cutting discs do a better job from Meguiar's than from Rupes. However, I will say, on this machine, the microfiber discs from Rupes, they are thinner than the Meguiar's ones, and so you can get more cut with that. And I got experience with that at Rupes. I tried them out, and now I'm a huge fan, especially on the 15, of using the microfiber cutting disc because it's thinner and you can get more cut.
Question, does the pad have to rotate for correction to occur?
So now I want to get to the people. Todd Helm, you've seen him in these videos. Man, I was like, who is this dude? I'd never heard of him. He's an interesting cat. He's very confident, almost to the point where he just kind of wears that cockiness, but he's this like kid savant. I have this feeling, and Todd, if you're watching, I think you'd be comfortable with me saying this, that when you were like 12, you knew everything or thought you did. So I appreciated learning from you because I feel like when you talked, it was like, yeah, you're a little cocky, love you brother, you're a little confident, you're a little like, oh, I know the answers, again, love you, but you actually did. Like, you're the guy. Like, you and Jason, I feel like, are a yin and yang combo that is really effective. So if you go into this training, know that like Todd, who you may or may not have heard of, he's worked I think for a bunch of different companies like Palm Beach Motoring, and you've been teaching classes for a long time, but I didn't know who you were. I do now. I have a lot of respect for you, brother. Much love. You taught me a lot. You helped me with some wet sanding techniques and how to lead with the corner of the block. Anyway, that's probably wrong, and I will never wet sand again. No, Todd's great. Different character. Young kid, you're like, who is this guy? But he's worked on amazing cars and knows what the heck he's talking about. You kind of are thinking Jason is the sage, right? Jason is the guy. But keep an open mind and realize that both of these guys are going to give you a ton of amazing knowledge. I also met some people that I still keep in contact with. If I'm hammering on a car or doing a coating job, and I'm like, hey, I have a question about this, I can call up guys in San Diego or Chris Mendoza. Shout outs to Dr. Black in Texas, man. That guy is killing it on social media. Dr. Black's Auto Detail. What's up, Chris Mendoza? Mendoza gave us a lot of laughs. So it's kind of like, should you go to the private university that's $50,000 a year? Okay, we're probably going out here on that. Why would you go there? The people that you meet, the networking, the fact that they are so gung-ho that the rising tide lifts all boats. You're in a group of people that are as passionate about this as you are. You're going to make friendships and connections that might last you forever if you want them to. And now I've got a lot of people that I can reach out to, and they can reach out to me as sort of like, you know, alumni of the Rupes class. So how about this for totally random? My camera died. I'm in a totally different spot. It's raining here, snowing close to where I live, but I wanted to finish off my review, and here it is. Was Rupes training class worth it? Here are the cons. I think that there is a little bit of an aura of superiority or elitism there. It wasn't maybe as friendly as maybe I wanted it to have been. However, it was an advanced class, and I think I came in asking a lot of questions as if I had never done this before. It wasn't the case. I just wanted to make the most of my training, but I could see how some of my questions were annoying, but like it wasn't the most friendly response to someone going in there who wanted to learn. But at the end, Jason Rose actually gave me one of those little lights, little pen lights, and he said, I really appreciate all the questions you asked. They were really great. And he gave a few gifts to people who like participated. So I feel like at the end it was actually like, no kid, you're good. Like, you asked good questions, we appreciated it. But you know, there is a macho culture of detailing, and especially when you get to the people who are there to like learn how to polish from Rupes, there were some egos there for sure. But the pros far outweighed the cons. For that price point, I think $850, I saw Matt with Obsessed Garage is going to be doing some trainings at Rupes, and they're going to cost maybe $1,500. I think that's worth it. $1,500 is worth it. $850 was a steal for 2 days of world-class training. I am so grateful to Rupes. Like I said, not a fanboy. I can just objectively say, like, it was totally worth my time. Anybody who's considering training, reach out to me. I'll answer any questions you have. But, you know, if you want business training, there are other ways to go. But if you want to really just, like, get your fundamentals really locked in, like, understand how polishing works at the highest level from world-class teachers, I'd say the Rupes training is a no-brainer.